My name is Jacqueline Carruthers, and I'm an author. I have a keen interest in writing and reading supernatural folklore and legends. My stories have been passed down from over 100 years of days long past, and my early beginnings was influenced by relatives who were storytellers. Many evenings were spent enjoying orations of colorful past events on humid summer evenings in the 1960s when I was growing up as a young child. My grandmother and mother would tell ghost stories till darkness fell. This creative outlet has been inspirational in my writing method, which is in the story I am about to narrate from my book, Folkloric Supernatural Tales. The name of this story is The Devil and Grandma Willie. In the late 1800s, my great-grandmother, Wilhelmina, was born to my great-great-grandmother, Angeline Riquet. Angeline had left the Deep South in Louisiana, where she had lived throughout her adolescent years during the pre-Civil War times. Young Angeline had decided it was time to go north and find a better life. A war in the South on the issues of slavery was near, and Angeline knew she would fare much better in the North, as she had an education. Kentucky, a border state, was in need of school teachers, and Angeline was educated by the Catholic Church, as was most Creoles during this time, for they were free people of color. Kentucky was known or considered as a wilderness, waiting for people in need to explore their vocations. So off Angeline went for new horizons of opportunity. Now, at the time she arrived, there was only one log cabin in the port of Paducah, and this was before the Civil War was fought in the mid-1800s. Angeline settled in a town that was once called Birmingham, where Kentucky Lake now stands. It was a community of free mixed people and Native American Indians. Angeline married, and after she arrived in Kentucky, her spouse was a Choctaw Indian. His spiritual name was Chau. He later was renamed Henry Dunlap because he wanted to be an American. He was a tracker and had worked with President Andrew Jackson. But this is another story I'll tell you later. Angeline sought to marry someone whose traits and spirituality and gifts were similar. And Creoles have a strange gift of knowledge, which is one of the reasons why they were protected, or they felt they were protected. They were free and educated and owned their own property. Native Americans were also free people, so Henry and Angeline made a good couple. Henry, or Chau's bloodline, was gifted too. His grandfather was an Indian chief, and his mother was a full-blooded Indian princess from the Choctaw tribe. His family possessed a gift similar to Angeline's family, a gift of shamanistic healing. Angeline and Henry had several daughters, of whom had inherited mystical gifts passed down from their parents. And this is how my great-grandmother on my maternal side, Willie, received her gift. She was regarded as a female folk healer. Willie was blessed with the touch of prophecy. Wilhelmina Dunlap, my great-grandmother's full name, as she was called, went out to heal people in the countryside her whole life, laying hands upon the ill in western Kentucky to rid them of sickness. She also did midwifery and had knowledge of herbs for poultices to take away fever. Wilhelmina knew at an early age that her special gift might dominate her life, and she accepted that choice. Now, earlier, as a young woman, she sought to have a social life by going to barn dances and to kick up her heels. And this was probably in the years of the mid-1890s. Having been born in 1873, Wilhelmina was probably in her teens, about 17 years old, a woman in her prime. She went to the barn dance located in the area of her hometown of Birmingham, that was in the area of the land between the lakes. The barns were huge, and most of the log cabins were joined in the middle, sharing a common porch that went all the way around the front. Wilhelmina rode to the barn dance that night in her buggy, steering her little brown mare to the festive gathering for a night of enjoyment with her friends. It is known in our family that women that have this special gift cannot be worldly. and protocols should always be obeyed with reverence. This was the night of the fall harvest moon, when one can almost hear the mist hanging low. And Grandma Willie went to the barn dance. She would tell stories about her buggy and how the little brown mare seemed to know the direction down the lantern-lit road. She stayed at the barn dance to the wee hours of the night. The festival was joyous, and there was so much fun. It was full of excitement. And after all was done and exhausted, she arrived at her home that was described as a two-sided log cabin. She walked up the long communal porch that connected both sides, approaching it quietly so not to wake her nephew John. She prepared to go to sleep because dancing had wore her out. Wilhelmina noticed John was still asleep in the bedchamber, and all of a sudden there was a loud clatter. A clatter so loud it startled her. The noise seemed to be coming from within the walls. And at first she thought that someone had entered the cabin. As the noise became louder, sounding similar to chains dragging, the sound became louder and louder, and it came closer and closer until something appeared, as a preternatural image emerged through the wall. Wilhelmina said the image favored a very handsome, lithe man in his youth with long, dark, wavy hair, almost an auburn color. The hair fell down his back. He had a fine mustache and a small beard. And to her surprise, this image, or person, had thick hair that also covered its entire torso, which grew more dense as it cascaded to its waist. She saw below that waist that he had the legs of a cow, with a long tail that switched back and forth. Grandma Willie had heard stories passed down from the Creoles and relatives before her, stories about the devil. Past descriptions had depicted it as being a very handsome but lithe, thin, and intensely evil being. She was told the devil liked smart, wise women with gifts, and he used trickery to entice them to do bad things against their good nature. The women in our family were taught not to tempt fate and not to be disobedient. They were careful